My family chose my sister's lie over me and cut me off. Now they're asking for my help. It started on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon in our suburban cul-de-sac, the kind where minivans idle outside identical garages, and everyone pretends their lives are as neat as their lawns. But mine was about to unravel like a cheap sweater caught on a doorknob. I was 38, juggling a remote marketing job from my home office, cluttered with coffee mugs and post-it notes scribbled with deadlines, when my phone buzzed with a text from Mum family meeting at the house tonight. Important. Love you. No details, just that curt urgency that made my stomach twist, reminding me of the time Dad had his heart scare 5 years ago. But this felt different, heavier, like the air before a storm. I wrapped up my Zoom call early, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen, tired eyes, unwashed hair pulled into a ponytail. The face of someone who'd been grinding through life without pause since my divorce 2 years back, focusing on my 12-year-old daughter Lily's soccer practices and piano lessons to keep the loneliness at bay. By evening, I drove the 20 minutes to my parents' split-level home, the one where my sister Elena and I had grown up sharing a bedroom wallpapered with boy band posters, our whispers late into the night forging what I thought was an unbreakable bond. Elena was there already, perched on the floral sofa with her perfect bob and designer blouse. Her husband Mark beside her looking uncomfortable, fiddling with his wedding ring, while Mum bustled in the kitchen brewing decaf and Dad sat in his recliner, remote in hand but the TV off, his face etched with lines deeper than I remembered. We exchanged the usual pleasantries. How's work? Lily's straight A's. Elena's promotion at the law firm. But the tension hummed like a faulty appliance, and when Mum finally sat down with a tray of cookies no one touched, she cleared her throat and said, "We need to talk about what happened last." Summer, my heart stuttered. Last summer was when Elena had accused me of trying to sabotage her marriage, claiming I'd sent anonymous emails to Mark about her supposed affair, complete with fabricated screenshots she'd shown the family in a tearful breakdown at our annual barbecue. I denied it vehemently, my voice cracking as I explained it must be a misunderstanding, perhaps a hack or a prank. But Elena had sobbed so convincingly, her eyes swollen and voice trembling, insisting I'd always been jealous of her success, her stable life, while mine crumbled post-divorce. The family had rallied around her, Dad nodding solemnly about protecting the victim, Mum hugging her tight, and even my brother Alex, calling from Seattle, had sided with Elena after hearing her side. I'd left that barbecue in stunned silence, the betrayal slicing through me like a dull knife, and in the weeks that followed, the calls dwindled, invitations ceased, until it was radio silence, cut off, erased from the family narrative as the problematic one, the liar. Now, here we were, and as Mum continued, her voice soft but firm, "Elena has something to say." My sister shifted, avoiding my gaze, her manicured nails picking at the sofa cushion. I made it up," she whispered, the words dropping like stones into still water, rippling out to shatter the fragile peace I'd built in isolation. Made it up? The room spun. I gripped the armrest, my mind flashing to the nights I'd cried alone in my apartment, questioning my sanity, wondering if I'd blacked out and done something awful. The therapy sessions where I'd unpacked childhood rivalries, convinced I was the flawed sibling. "Why?" I managed, my voice raw, barely above a breath, and Elena finally looked up, tears streaking her mascara. I was scared. Mark and I were fighting, and I thought if I created a distraction, something external. I didn't think it'd go this far. Didn't think? The anger surged, hot and unfamiliar, as I thought of Lily asking why Grandma didn't call for her birthday, the excuses I'd fabricated about busy schedules, the way I'd scrolled through social media seeing family photos without me, cropped out like a bad memory. Dad interjected. "We're sorry, honey. We should have listened to you," but his apology felt hollow, laced with the guilt of a man who'd chosen the easier path, believing the dramatic tale over my quiet denials. Mum reached for my hand, but I pulled back, the touch burning like accusation. How could they have believed her so readily, dismissed me without a second thought? The fallout was immediate. I stood, my legs shaky, muttering something about needing air, and stumbled to the porch where rain pattered on the awning, mirroring the storm inside me. Inside, voices rose, Elena's pleas, Mark's awkward defense, parents' murmurs, but I couldn't bear it, driving home in a blur, ignoring the buzzing phone, arriving to find Lily curled on the couch with her tablet, watching some tween show on Netflix. "Mom, you're early," she said, glancing up with that innocent curiosity, and I forced a smile, hugging her tight to hide my trembling, whispering we'd order pizza tonight, anything to anchor myself in the routine of single motherhood. But as I lay awake later, the confession replaying like a looped video, the pain gnawed deeper, not just Elena's lie, but the family's choice to embrace it, to sever me without proof, leaving me adrift in a sea of doubt and isolation. How do you rebuild from that? The shock lingered, a fresh wound, and as dawn crept in, filtering through blinds onto my rumpled sheets, I realized this was only the beginning of the unraveling, the confrontation that would force us all to face the fractures we'd ignored for years. The rain had thickened into a steady drum against the windows by the time I pulled into my driveway, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the dark, and I sat there for long minutes with the engine idling, unable to move, the confession still echoing in my skull like a bad recording stuck on. Repeat. Elena's voice, small, cracked, admitting she'd fabricated the whole thing, should have brought relief, some kind of vindication, but instead it lodged in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Because the lie itself was only half the injury, the other half was the speed and certainty with which my entire family had chosen to believe it, had chosen her tears over my stunned denials, had let months pass without a single check-in, without once asking if I was okay. I finally killed the ignition, the sudden quiet pressing in, and walked inside to find Lily already in pajamas, cross-legged on the living room rug with a bowl of microwave popcorn balanced on her knees, the blue glow of her favorite baking show rerun painting her face in shifting light. She looked up, eyebrows lifting at my expression. "You okay, Mom?" she asked, and I managed a nod, dropping my keys on the console table with a clatter that sounded too loud. "Rough family stuff," I said, keeping my voice even, the way I'd learned to do after the divorce, when every small crisis felt like it could tip us both over. She studied me a second longer, too perceptive for 12, then patted the couch beside her. "Want some popcorn? It's the kettle kind you like." I sank down, accepted the bowl, and let the salty crunch fill the silence between us while my mind raced backward and forward at once. When the episode ended and she yawned her way to bed with a quick hug that smelled faintly of strawberry shampoo, I locked up, turned off lights, and stood in the kitchen staring at the half-empty bottle of Pinot Grigio in the fridge door. I poured a glass, then another, carrying it to the couch where I curled under the throw blanket that still carried the ghost of Mark's cologne from the last time he'd visited years ago, back when we were all still pretending the sibling rivalry was harmless. The alcohol didn't dull the ache so much as sharpen the edges of memory, Elena at 16 borrowing my favorite sweater without asking and returning it stained, the way she'd always had the louder laugh at family dinners, the way Mum's eyes would soften when Elena talked about law school while Dad clapped me on the back for steady marketing work. That's something solid. I told myself it didn't matter, that being the reliable one was its own reward, but tonight the old resentments flared fresh beside the new betrayal, and I cried, quiet, ugly sobs that shook my shoulders until my throat burned. Around 1 a.m. My phone lit up on the coffee table, Mum. I let it ring out, then watched the screen glow again with a text, "Please call when you're ready. We love you. Love." The word felt fraudulent after so many months of silence, and I typed nothing back, just powered the phone off and left it face down like evidence I didn't want to examine. Sleep came in fragments, dreams of childhood bedrooms where Elena and I whispered secrets under the same quilt, only to wake and find the quilt gone, the room empty, the door locked from the outside. I jolted awake at 4, heart hammering, and padded to the kitchen for water, noticing the rain had stopped, leaving the world unnaturally still. Dawn was still hours away, but I couldn't lie there anymore, so I pulled on yoga pants and an old hoodie, made coffee in the dark using only the stove light, and sat at the breakfast bar scrolling through years of family group chat screenshots I'd never deleted. Birthday wishes, vacation plans, casual check-ins that had gradually thinned until they vanished entirely after last summer. Each missing message felt like a small amputation. When the sky finally paled to grey, I showered, dressed for a workday I had no intention of fully engaging with, and woke Lily with the usual routine, gentle knock, time to rise, her groggy protest, the smell of toast and scrambled eggs filling the house like a fragile shield. She chatted about a science project on renewable energy, while I nodded mechanically, packing her lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, the note I always tucked in, "You've got this." Drop-off was quiet. She squeezed my hand before climbing out, sensing something off but not pressing, and I watched her disappear through the school doors with that familiar pang of gratitude and terror that she was growing up in a world that could wound her the way mine had wounded me. Back home, the house felt too big, too quiet. I opened my laptop, stared at unread emails, then closed it again. Instead, I texted my best friend Jenna. Alina admitted she lied. "Family wants to talk. I don't know what I feel." Her reply came fast, "Come over tonight?" Wine and swearing. No pressure to decide anything. I agreed, craving the uncomplicated loyalty of someone who'd never once doubted my version of events. The rest of the day passed in a haze, half-hearted work, laundry folded without seeing it, a therapy appointment I'd booked months ago now, feeling urgently necessary. When evening arrived, I drove to Jenna's, left my phone in the car so I wouldn't see the inevitable follow-up texts from Mum or, worse, Elena, and spent hours on her patio under string lights, recounting every detail while she listened without interrupting, refilling my glass, occasionally reaching over to squeeze my wrist. By the time I got home, Lily was asleep, the house dark except for the hallway night light she still needed. I stood in her doorway, watching her chest rise and fall, then retreated to my own bed, leaving the bedroom door open in case she called out. I didn't cry again that night. The tears had emptied out, leaving a vast, tender hollow. But as I lay staring at the ceiling fan's slow rotation, I understood that the confession hadn't closed the wound. It had only exposed how deep it ran, how long it had been festering beneath the surface of polite family fiction. Tomorrow, or the day after, someone would try to reach me again, and I would have to decide whether listening was forgiveness or merely the first step toward deciding if forgiveness was even possible. For now, though, I let the darkness hold me, raw and sleepless, waiting for whatever came next. The next morning arrived brittle and bright, the kind of false spring sunshine that makes you squint and question whether winter is really over, and I woke with the dull throb behind my eyes that comes from crying yourself empty and then lying awake replaying every word. Lily was already up, cereal bowl clinking in the kitchen, humming off key to whatever playlist she'd cued on the Bluetooth speaker. The normalcy of it felt almost cruel, like the world had forgotten to pause, while my insides were still rearranging themselves around Elena's confession. I shuffled in wearing yesterday's hoodie, poured coffee with hands that shook just enough to slosh a little over the rim, and sat across from her at the small table we'd bought second-hand after the divorce. She glanced up from her phone, screen angled away so I couldn't see, a new habit I hadn't yet decided whether to challenge, and asked, casual as anything, "So, did Grandma and Grandpa say sorry?" The question landed like a pebble in still water. I'd told her only the barest version last night, that there'd been a big misunderstanding, and Aunt Elena had admitted she was wrong about something important. Now her dark eyes, so much like mine at that age, held steady, waiting. I took a slow sip, buying time, then said, "They're trying to. It's complicated, but yeah, they know they got it wrong." She nodded once, decisive, and went back to scrolling, but not before I caught the flicker of relief across her face, the same one she used to wear when I'd finally come home after a long work trip. Protecting her had become my reflex years ago, shielding her from the worst of the custody arguments, from the nights I cried in the shower so she wouldn't hear, but this felt different, heavier. She was old enough now to sense the fault lines in the bigger family, and I hated that she'd already learned to brace for disappointment from the people who were supposed to be constants. After I dropped her at school, her backpack slung low, ponytail swinging, waving without turning around, I drove straight to my parents' house instead of home. I hadn't planned it. The car just steered itself there, muscle memory overriding thought. Mum answered the door in her gardening clogs and an old cardigan, eyes red-rimmed, and for a second neither of us spoke, just stood on the threshold like strangers negotiating entry. "Come in," she said finally, voice small, and I stepped past her into the familiar smell of lemon cleaner and coffee grounds. Dad was in the living room, pretending to read the paper, but the pages hadn't turned in minutes. He folded it when he saw me, stood awkwardly, then sat again when I didn't move to hug him. Elena wasn't there, thank God, and Mark had apparently gone to work early. The silence stretched until Mum said, "We didn't sleep either," and gestured to the couch. I stayed standing. "I need to know why," I said, keeping my tone level the way I practiced in therapy when anger wanted to bolt out of me. Why her story over mine? Without proof. Without even asking me questions. Dad rubbed his jaw, the rasp of stubble loud in the quiet room. She was so convincing. The crying, the details. She had those emails printed out. We thought you were hurting, maybe lashing out after the divorce. We told ourselves we were protecting the family. Protecting the family. The phrase twisted in my gut. By cutting out half of it, Mum started to reach for me again, then stopped herself. We were wrong. We see that now. Elena came to us a few weeks ago, said she couldn't carry it anymore. She's been seeing someone, a counselor. She's trying to make it right. I laughed, short and bitter. A few weeks? So she's had time to process her guilt. And I get, what, one teary family meeting and a group text apology? They flinched in tandem, and part of me hated that I'd caused it, hated how easily the old roles snapped back, me the angry one, them the conciliators. But I couldn't stop. Lily asked about you guys yesterday. She's been asking for months why nobody calls, why there are no sleepovers at Grandma's anymore. I've been making excuses, busy schedules, travel, whatever, so she wouldn't feel like she did something wrong. But it's me you punished. You chose Elena's lie and let me disappear. Mom's face crumpled. She sank onto the arm of the recliner. We want to fix it. We want Lily back in our lives. We want you back. I looked around the room, the same photos on the mantel, Elena's law school graduation prominent in the center, my marketing award plaque tucked to the side, and felt the old ache of being second string. "I don't know if I can trust that yet," I said. "I need space. And boundaries. No dropping by unannounced. No guilting me into forgiveness, because you feel bad now. If we're going to try this, it has to be slow. And honest." Dad nodded slowly. "Whatever you need." I exhaled, the air leaving me in a rush that left me lightheaded. "I'll bring Lily over next weekend. 1 hour. Neutral ground. Maybe the park. No big talks. No apologies in front of her. Just normal. If it feels okay, we can build from there." They agreed too quickly, too gratefully, and I left before the tears I could see gathering in Mom's eyes could pull me into comforting them. Driving home, the radio off, I let the quiet settle. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, but the shaking had stopped. I'd set the first boundary, small and specific, and it felt like reclaiming a piece of ground I'd let them walk over for too long. When I picked Lily up that afternoon, she climbed in, dumped her backpack at her feet, and said without preamble, "I told my friends you were at a family meeting." They asked if it was about drama. I said yeah, grown-up drama, but it's getting fixed. I glanced at her in the rearview. "Is that what you think?" She shrugged. "You look less mad today. That's good, right?" I smiled despite myself, small but real. "Yeah, that's good." We stopped for takeout tacos on the way home, her favorite, extra guac, and ate on the couch watching reruns, her feet in my lap, the ordinary details stitching themselves around the raw edges inside me. Later, after she'd gone to bed, I opened my laptop and searched for local family therapists who specialized in estrangement and reconciliation. I bookmarked 3, sent emails asking about availability. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was motion, deliberate and careful, the way you learn to walk again after a long time sitting still. And for the first time in months, the house didn't feel quite so empty when the lights went out. The week after that first boundary-setting visit to my parents' house passed in a strange, suspended rhythm, like holding your breath while waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every notification on my phone made my pulse jump. But most were work pings or Lily's school reminders, and the family. Texts stayed quiet after I'd replied to Mum's tentative "thank you for coming over. We'll see you Saturday at the park." With a simple yes, 2 p.m. Just us 4. I spent the days leaning hard into routine, early morning coffee, while checking emails, school drop-offs, where I lingered at the curb a second longer, watching Lily disappear into the crowd of backpacks, afternoons pretending to be productive at my desk while my mind drifted to what I'd say, or not. Say, if Elena showed up uninvited. Jenna kept texting check-ins, "Still breathing? Need me to kidnap you for coffee?" And I answered with thumbs-up emojis and the occasional honest hanging in, grateful for the tether of someone who didn't need explanations. By Friday night, I'd decided I couldn't face the weekend at home alone with the what-ifs circling, so I booked a small Airbnb an hour north, a one-bedroom cabin on a quiet lake that promised nothing more glamorous than a wood-burning stove, decent Wi-Fi, and no doorbell to dread. I told Lily we were taking a mum-daughter getaway to celebrate the end of her science fair project. She lit up at the mention of s'mores and board games. No questions about why now, why suddenly. We packed light, sweatpants, card games, her current favorite fantasy series, my laptop just in case, and left Saturday morning before the park meetup time, my stomach knotted with a mix of relief and guilt. The drive up was easy. Lily controlled the playlist, singing along off-key to pop songs I pretended to hate, while secretly memorizing lyrics I'd never admit to knowing. The cabin smelled of pine and last season's firewood. We unpacked, made hot chocolate on the tiny stove, and spent the afternoon walking the short trail to the water's edge, skipping stones until our arms ached. She talked about school, her friend group's latest drama, a teacher she liked, the way recess felt shorter every year, and I listened without the usual half-presence that came from carrying family weight. For those hours, the betrayal felt farther away, not gone but muffled by the sound of wind in the trees and her laughter when a stone finally skipped 6 times. That night, we built a fire in the pit outside, wrapped in blankets against the chill, and roasted marshmallows while stars came out one by one. She asked, quiet, "Are we fixing things with Grandma and them?" I poked the coals with a stick, watching sparks lift. "I'm trying. Slowly. I don't want you to feel caught in the middle, okay? If it doesn't work, it's not because of anything you did." She nodded, serious, then leaned her head on my shoulder. "I just want us to be okay. All of us." The words cracked something open in me, not pain this time, but a tender recognition that she'd been carrying her own version of the silence, and I'd been too wrapped in my hurt to fully see it. We stayed out until the fire died to embers, then went inside to play Monopoly until she yawned so wide her eyes watered. I tucked her into the loft bed with extra blankets, kissed her forehead, and sat downstairs with the last of the wine, staring at the dark windows. My phone had stayed mostly off, but I checked it once. 3 missed calls from Elena. A text from Mum saying we missed you at the park today. Hope everything's all right. And nothing else. No anger, no accusations, just quiet worry. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and started typing the rules I needed if we were going to try again. Full transparency, no more secrets, no more protecting anyone by hiding truths. Therapy for Elena first, then maybe joint if it felt safe. No expecting me to pretend the months of silence hadn't happened. Lily's involvement only as much as she wanted, on my terms. The list grew longer than I expected, each point a small stake in the ground, marking what I wouldn't surrender again. Sunday we hiked a longer trail, ate diner burgers on the way home, and arrived back in our neighborhood, just as the streetlights flickered on. Lily crashed early, exhausted and happy, and I sat on the couch with my list, reading it over until the words blurred. I texted Jenna a photo of the lake at sunset, took space, felt like breathing for the first time in months. She replied instantly, proud of you. Now what? I typed back, rules, then maybe a conversation. One step. Monday morning, I forwarded the list to my therapist in an email titled Draft Boundaries. Thoughts? And copied the 3 family therapy practices I'd bookmarked earlier, asking for a consult on whether individual sessions for me first made sense. The replies came fast, therapist approving the clarity, one practice with an opening next week, and I felt the faint stir of agency, not control, but the knowledge that I could decide the pace. That evening, Lily and I made pasta from scratch, flour dusting the counter, her hands small and determined as she rolled dough. We ate at the table instead of the couch, talking about nothing important, and when she went to shower, I opened my phone again. This time I answered, Mum, we needed a weekend away. I'm ready to talk more, but only if we do it my way. I'll send some thoughts tomorrow. No warmth yet, no softening, just the truth. I hit send, set the phone face down, and wiped the last of the flour from the counter. The small domestic act grounding me. The cabin had given me distance, but coming home reminded me the work wasn't escaping. It was choosing, deliberately, what pieces of the family I might still want, and on what terms. For the first time since the confrontation, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a question I was finally allowed to answer. The email from the therapist arrived on a Wednesday morning while I was still in my bathrobe, Lily already at the bus stop with her earbuds in and backpack slung low. The subject line read, Initial session availability, individual, next week, and attached was a short intake form that asked the usual questions, symptoms, history, goals, and one that made me pause. What brings you here now? I stared at the blank field for a full minute, coffee cooling beside the keyboard, before typing the truth in one long, unedited rush. My sister lied about me to our family last year. They believed her and cut me off for months. Now she's admitted it, and they want forgiveness. But I'm not sure I can give it without losing myself again. Hitting send felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding since the confrontation. Small, but deliberate. The confirmation came back within the hour, Thursday at 4 p.m., virtual, 50 minutes. I blocked the time on my calendar, labeled it simply therapy, and told no one, not even Jenna yet, because saying it out loud might make it real in a way I wasn't ready for. The days until then blurred into the ordinary grind, work deadlines that refused to care about my inner turmoil, grocery runs where I stood too long in the produce aisle staring at avocados like they held answers, evenings with Lily where we did homework at the kitchen table and I caught myself watching her more closely, memorizing the way she chewed her pencil when she was thinking, the small frown between her brows when a math problem wouldn't bend. She asked once, casual over spaghetti, Are you going to talk to someone? Like a feelings doctor? I nodded, twirling pasta on my fork. Yeah. To help sort out the family stuff. She shrugged, accepting it the way kids do when adults finally admit they don't have it all figured out. Thursday afternoon, I logged in early, adjusted the laptop so the light didn't hit my face too harshly, smoothed my hair, even though no one could see below the shoulders. Dr. Patel appeared on screen, mid-40s, calm eyes behind wire frames, a bookshelf behind her, filled with titles I recognized from my own late-night Amazon scrolls. And after the basics, she asked gently, Tell me about the lie. I started slow, then the words came faster, the fabricated emails, Elena's performance at the barbecue, the family's swift alignment against me, the silence that followed like a door slamming shut, the way it echoed every time I'd felt second best growing up. I cried twice, once when I described Lily asking why Grandma didn't call, again when I admitted how much I'd questioned my own memory, wondering if I'd somehow deserved the exile. Dr. Patel listened without interrupting, nodding in the small, deliberate way therapists do, and when I finished she said, What you're describing is a profound relational trauma. The betrayal isn't just the lie, it's the abandonment that followed, the loss of the family narrative you thought you belonged to. Rebuilding trust starts with trusting yourself first. We spent the last 15 minutes mapping small acts of vulnerability I could practice, journaling the feelings before they turned into resentment, naming one boundary per interaction, allowing myself to say I'm not ready yet without apology. I ended the call lighter, not fixed, but with the sense that the hollow inside me had edges now, something I could trace instead of falling into endlessly. That night I wrote the first journal entry in a cheap notebook I'd bought on impulse at the drugstore. Today I told a stranger the whole story and didn't die. That's something. Friday I texted Alina. Short, no greeting, I started individual therapy. If you're serious about making this right, you should too. I need to see that before we talk more. Her reply came an hour later. I already am. 3 sessions in. I can share the therapist's name if you want verification. I didn't ask for it yet. The offer itself felt like the first real crack of honesty from her side. Saturday morning, Lily had a soccer game, cold wind whipping across the field, parents huddled under blankets sipping thermoses, and I stood on the sideline cheering louder than usual when she scored, the sound of my own voice surprising me. After, we stopped for hot chocolate at the drive-thru, steam fogging the windows, and she said, "You seem calmer. Like you're not holding your breath all the time." I glanced at her in the passenger seat, cheeks pink from the cold. "I'm trying to stop holding it." She nodded, satisfied, and changed the subject to weekend plans. That afternoon I did something small but deliberate. I texted Mom a photo of Lily mid-kick from the game. No caption, just the image. She replied almost immediately, "She's getting so tall. Thank you for sharing." No pressure, no plea, just acknowledgement. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete the thread either. Sunday I went for a walk alone while Lily was at a friend's house. Earbuds in but music low so I could hear my thoughts. I let myself remember good moments with Elena, late-night talks after breakups, the way she'd sneak me contraband candy during finals week, and felt the old affection stir beneath. The hurt, faint but there. Back home I lit a candle on the kitchen counter, the one that smelled like cedar and rain, and sat with my notebook again. This time I wrote, maybe vulnerability isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only way to see if the bridge is still standing. The week closed with another therapy appointment booked, a tentative plan to consider joint sessions eventually, and the quiet realization that I was no longer just reacting, I was choosing. Small steps, yes, but mine, and for the first time the future felt less like a reckoning and more like a possibility I could shape, one careful, honest breath at a time. The first joint session felt less like therapy and more like stepping onto a frozen lake, every movement deliberate. Testing for cracks that could send us plunging, I arrived 10 minutes early to the small office suite on the edge of town, parked in the far corner of the lot so I could watch the door, and sat in my car, breathing through the anxiety that had settled in my chest like damp concrete. Dr. Patel had suggested we start with individual check-ins for the first 15 minutes, Elena in one room, me in another, before bringing us together, a buffer I'd clung to when I agreed to this after 4 more solo sessions where I'd practiced saying no without guilt, and yes without immediate surrender. I'd told Lily only that I was meeting Aunt Elena with a helper to talk about grown-up things, and she'd hugged me extra tight that morning, whispering, "Be careful with your heart, okay?" Before heading to school, her words looped in my head as I walked inside, the waiting room smell of lavender diffuser and fresh printer paper oddly comforting. Elena was already there, sitting straight-backed on the edge of a beige chair, her usual polish softened, hair in a simple ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain sweater that made her look younger. Almost like the sister who used to steal my lip gloss and confess crushes at 2 a.m. She stood when she saw me, hands clasped in front, and said quietly, "Thank you for coming." I nodded once, no smile yet, and we were ushered into separate rooms for the initial check-ins. In my room, Dr. Patel asked how I felt about being in the same building as Elena. I answered honestly, terrified. Angry. Curious, like I'm waiting for the other shoe even though I know she already dropped it. We talked about safety signals, my right to end the session at any point, my list of non-negotiables. And when the timer chimed, she led me down the hall to the larger room where Elena waited, now seated on one end of the sectional sofa, a box of tissues between us like a neutral zone. Dr. Patel sat in the armchair opposite, notebook balanced on her knee, and opened with the ground rules we'd all agreed to in advance. Speak from I statements, no interrupting, pause if emotions escalated, confidentiality absolute. Then she turned to Elena. "Why don't you start by sharing what you hope to accomplish today?" Elena exhaled, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater. "I want to own what I did without excuses. I lied because I was drowning in my own marriage problems. Mark and I were barely speaking. I felt like I was failing at everything, and instead of facing that, I made you the villain so I could be the victim. It was selfish and cruel, and it cost you months of pain, cost Lily time with her grandparents, cost all of us trust we might never fully get back. I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I just want you to hear that I see the damage, and I'm willing to keep showing up to repair what I can." Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't look away, and for the first time I saw the shame sitting heavy in her eyes. Not performative, but lived in. I waited until the silence felt full rather than empty, then spoke. I spent so long wondering if I was the problem, if I'd always been too quiet, too steady, too easy to sideline. When you lied, and they believed you, it confirmed every old fear that I didn't matter as much. The silence after hurt worse than the accusation, because it felt like proof. I'm here because part of me still loves you, still remembers the sister who stayed up with me when Dad was sick. But loving you doesn't mean I have to trust you yet. I need to see consistency. Therapy notes if you're comfortable sharing. No more secrets with the family. No pressuring me to pretend we're okay before I am. Dr. Patel nodded encouragingly. What does trust look like in practice for you right now? I thought for a moment. Small truths. If you're struggling, tell me instead of hiding it. If the family asks you to keep something from me, say no and give me space when I need it without making me the bad guy for asking. Elena swallowed. I can do that. I've already told Mum and Dad that any family communication goes through both of us, no side conversations about you. And I'll share my therapist's contact if it helps you feel safe. We sat with that for a minute, the air thick, but not suffocating. Then Dr. Patel asked if we wanted to try something concrete, naming one deeper issue each that the lie had exposed. Elena went first. I've always felt like I had to be the successful one to earn love. When things cracked with Mark, I panicked that I'd lose my place, so I pushed you out to protect it. That's on me to fix, not you. I felt the old resentment stir, then settle. I've carried this belief that if I'm not perfect, quiet, helpful, never rocking the boat, I'll be discarded. Your lie and their choice proved it in the worst way. I'm working on believing I deserve space, even when it inconveniences people. Saying it aloud in front of her felt like peeling off a bandage. The skin underneath was raw, but starting to scab. Toward the end, Dr. Patel suggested a small gesture if we were both willing, sitting closer on the sofa, not touching yet, just narrowing the physical distance as a symbol of willingness to try. I hesitated, then shifted one cushion over. Elena mirrored me, leaving an empty space between us but no longer at opposite ends. Our knees almost aligned, close enough to feel the warmth of another body without contact. When the session ended, we stood awkwardly. No hugs, just a quiet see you next week. From her and my nod in return. Driving home, the sky was the bruised purple of early dusk, streetlights flickering on one by one. I called Jenna from the car and told her the basics, no details about Elena's marriage, just that we'd named things, moved closer by inches. She whistled low. That's huge. You didn't run. At home, Lily was sprawled on the couch with homework, takeout containers already open, Chinese from the place we liked, and when I walked in, she looked up, searching my face. How'd it go? I sat beside her, stole a spring roll. Hard, good hard. We talked about real stuff. She leaned into my side. Did you hold hands? I laughed softly, surprised. Not yet. But we sat closer than before. She nodded like that made perfect sense, then handed me a fortune cookie. Mine read, the best way out is always through. I tucked the slip into my pocket, ate the cookie in small bites, and for the first time in a long while the house felt full, not of people, but of possibility. Fragile and untested, but present. That night I journaled one line before sleep. We shared the same air today without choking on it. That's enough for now.